Okay. Now, from what I know, if you live in the US or the UK or wherever the fuck you speak English and shit, summer is over. You're all probably in school. If you're like around my age, like if you're not like homeschooled or like if you dropped out like me, for personal reasons, you're probably all in school. Some of you might be bitching their asses off. Some of you might be thinking school is the worst. I don't want to be here. I'm too good for this. Or maybe you think school's shitty for some stupid old teenage hormone pouring reasons. And all I'm gonna say to that is, fuck you. You don't know shit. I'm only 18, and I know that being in school is one of the best things if you have friends at least. Now I didn't have friends, so that was like no go for me. And Korea, you know what we do in Korea in summer vacation? First of all, we don't get summer vacation, especially if you're in high school. We get like maybe like 3 to 4 weeks of summer vacation, and you know what we do then? You think we go out and get laid while listening to like Frank Ocean albums or something? No, we don't do that shit. We're not that privileged. We study. And it's not like we study in like libraries or at home. No, we study at school. Yes, in summer vacation, we stay in school. We just don't need to be there. But if we're not gonna be there, why do we study? You may ask. Well, I don't know. It's Korea. It's the government. It's aliens. It's some brainwashing bullshit. But seriously, man, school's underrated. Unless you're a genius. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, Mazursky. Mazursky. Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice. This is a film that I watched for the sole reason I wanted to see Natalie Wood naked. Unfortunately, Natalie Wood does not get naked in this movie. It was a false advertised film, but I still watched it. And before I saw the film, I learned for the first time that this was directed by, I didn't remember his first name, but his last name's Mazursky. He also directed an Unmarried Woman, which is one of my favorite films of the '70s. So I was really excited for this movie actually because it's got Natalie Wood, it's got Dyan, it's got Elliott Gould, it's got some really good actors in it. And while watching this film, I quickly realized, and I know I've only seen like two of his movies, but I quickly realized, and now I'm really positive of what his style seems to be like at this point. You know, it's a collection of situations instead of a story. It really does not flow as a story. If you want this film to flow as a story, it's gonna be terrible. It does not work as a very normal narrative structure, but I think it works as a situational film because it really works for the character development. I like the fact that the film is just filled with long conversations and shots that that might be drivel at first. At first, you were just like, "What's the point of all of this?" And sometimes the scenes really are pointless, but as the scene goes on, it really goes on for more than most scenes would last. But like they go on, and you realize just how revealing these scenes are. It can be funny at like certain moments, but then it gets really dramatic. It's a really dynamic way of telling stories, and because it's just like the film is structured with this one big scene, then there's another big scene, then there's another big scene. It's just filled with big scenes. It doesn't edit like and go to like various places. No, it stays in one room for like 10 minutes, and then it stays in another room for like 10 minutes, and it just goes on like that. So with each scene, you're revealed another thing that you never knew about the characters and the story and what's going on, and a new element for the characters come in to really challenge the audience and challenge the characters. And I can easily see people like Richard Linklater being influenced by this. I can easily see this element of storytelling done in Boyhood, and especially in the climax of Before Midnight. The third film in the Before trilogy. And with this film, I think I'm very certain that he's a really personal filmmaker. He's really personal and he's really subtle. There's a lot of close-up shots here, and not only close-up shots, shots that actors just look straight into the camera with, and it really challenges the characters. It really challenges the morals of the characters. Thus, it also challenges the audience because, at first you're with the characters. You're like, okay, she has a point. She's right. But then, as the filmmaker challenges the characters, you're also challenged. Your morals are challenged. You start to think. You start to think about personal ideas. And it gets really interesting. And most importantly, I think the film is funny in the most subtle ways. Like, it's not even Woody Allen like funny. If you think Woody Allen's too not funny and funny at the same time, because when you watch a Woody Allen movie, Woody Allen films are funny, but they're not like openly laugh out loud funny. You just acknowledge how funny it is, and you appreciate that. With this film, it's not even that. It's just like there's not a punchline. It's definitely more situational comedy. It does seem like a sitcom-ish sense of humor, but it's more deep. It comes from a deeper place. It's not just something you throw at on the wall and wish it would stick. No, it really comes from deeper places, and it comes from really confused places. There's this great scene where, there are two couples in this film, obviously, Bob and Carol and Ted and Alice, and one, I'm not going to spoil it, but one of the couples, and within one of the couples, the woman has an affair, and the husband gets pissed, but then he realizes, oh, I believe in the freedom of love. So he suddenly changes reactions, like, oh, I love you now because I just realized that I'm a hippie, or at least I'm trying to be a hippie. And it's funny in that way. There's also this great scene where within the other couple, the guy just in a very passing by way says, I had an affair. And while that's happening, the woman is talking to another person, and she suddenly realizes that her husband said that, and she just said, that's good. And she just keeps on talking. Like, it's really subtle and it just happens and it just passes by. But it's not the fact that they're saying something funny. It's really just the fact that the situation is so absurd, but it's so realistic that it just gets to you on a really personal level. And all of these things exist in this film, and I think it's really great. I really enjoy the theme of the film as well, because it really reveals a lot of things, so it gets into a lot of things. The film is all about, Bob and Carol goes to this hippie sort of convention place, and they learn about the freedom of love and being honest and shit, man. And, they start to have this idea of having, some freedom about being honest and being emotional and feeling and not thinking. It's all in here, guts and shit. But I like the fact that they really deal with the idea of freedom and the freedom of sex, or freedom of whatever, the freedom of thought, or whatever. The idea of freedom really cannot overcome personal morals. These characters realize that although they want to follow this ideas of freedom, of love and thought and being honest, their personal morals and their kind of, conventional ideas are still intact. They can't change who they are just because they find something more ideal. It also seems to go deep into how the circumstantial part of the hippie movement. It doesn't really apply to everything. The idea of acceptance and freedom and love doesn't really apply to everything in life. Sometimes you need to be strict. Sometimes you need to act out violently. Sometimes you need to be a normal human being. Which comes to really what the film is, what I feel like the film is trying to say. Ideals aren't reality, which is something that, especially in the late 60s, I bet this was a really tough idea for like hippies and the Woodstock baby boom generation to take in, because it was all about ideals, it was all about feelings, it was all about the revolution and whatnot. And this film is saying, no, yes, it all comes from a good place, but it's not reality at times. Sometimes you need to accept the fact that the things you believe don't apply to everyday life, which is an extremely realistic thing to say for a late 60s movie. And because it deals with such personal things, and because it deals with such, deep, complex, and really just ideas that can almost make people into hypocrites, the acting is beyond amazing. And what's so great about it is that all four characters and all four actors are all different. They don't act the same. The characters do not all have the same character arc. They all go through different phases. Natalie Wood as Carol, she kind of has this doe-eyed innocence of a performance, but I love the fact that she's out of all of them, she's the best at acting confused and being, she really has these inner demons and trying to deal out what the hell is going on. There's this great scene where Robert Culp, who plays Bob tells Carol that he had an affair, and Carol's all about freedom of love. But suddenly she hears something that should make her angry, and she has this expression on her face that just nails what it would feel like to trying to be for freedom of love, but then hearing the fact that his husband had a fucking affair. Robert Culp as Bob is, out of all of them, he's really the best at acting out confliction and guilt. Guilt really is one of the main things Bob is trying to go for. Dyan Cannon's Alice seems more personal. This is the character I think I would see more in an unmarried woman. It's very personal. It's very thoughtful. She goes to the therapist. She talks about her personal life and her sex life and her husband. And she's really the best at questioning morality. And Elliott Gould, Elliott Gould's Ted is the skeptic, but I feel like he's just the funniest out of all of it. Elliott Gould's he's a really good comedic actor. Like, I've seen him in Friends, and I hate Friends, but Elliott Gould, alongside Matthew Perry, is like one of the few things that makes Friends funny. And in this film, he really uses his comedic chops really well. He's very subtle with everything, and he gives inflections to kind of show that he's kind of a fucking asshole, but he's such a likable asshole. Overall, I think the film's amazing. I mean, certain things obviously did not age well. Like Natalie Wood saying the word groovy, it really is painful to listen to. And I know she's trying to be a hippie, but it's really awkward. And overall, the slangs really did not age well. It really is kind of a film of its period. And like I said, it doesn't really flow as a story, but overall, I think the film's amazing. It didn't really hit me on a personal level as an unmarried woman, because an unmarried woman really is an extremely personal movie. And I think that film really delves deeper into that personal stuff because it deals with one main character instead of four. But still, this film, for a film being about four characters, I think this film does an extremely efficient job at showing us what they're feeling and what they're going through individually, and all in their really individual way. So yeah, 4 out of 4 easily. That's about it. I don't have a funny bit to get this shit done. So yeah, Bob, Carol, Ted. Sometimes I get the names mixed up. So it's Bob, Carol, Ted, and Alice. 4 out of 4. Bye.